Social Security case? Dial pound 529 on your cell. Pound law, that's all.
Live on Sunday nights, it's Bill Cunningham, 10 p.m. on News Radio WFLA Orlando. News Radio WFLA wants to help with a chance at $1,000. Text the nationwide keyword CALM to 200-200. That's CALM to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. Beyond Reason Radio.
Tom Benson.
Yes.
I'm gonna need you to talk me off the ledge again. Remember a couple shows ago? I think it was last Thursday actually. I said I'm more worried about the future of my country than at any point.
I can't remember what I had for lunch today, let alone what happened last Thursday. But yes, I do.
Okay, well, I'm in that mood again.
Uh-oh.
I'm in that mood again. You're gonna have to talk me off the ledge.
Mercy.
I am so frustrated today.
Well, just look down. I don't think you want to go.
Just look down. I don't know it. You'd be a terrible at this job. Just don't look down. Oh, okay, never mind then. I'm just so frustrated at what I'm hearing from people today in the media, on the left, even some on the right, honestly, but about this coronavirus pandemic and the damage it's doing to the economy. And the people, there's just so many apparently really smart people that don't understand we need a working economy for lives. It's not just about money and the stock market and Trump's reelection.
It's the American way as we know it.
Yeah, it's how we get our food. It's how we get our shelter. It's how we survive is a working economy. And I can't understand why when people bring this up, they are trashed as not caring about people. How can you say that? That makes no sense. And I'm trying to understand it. And then those same people that say this is such a crisis that everyone must shelter in place for months, even if it destroys the economy, when you bring up a possible treatment that has worked in many cases, they say you're moving too fast, you're being irresponsible, and Trump is just doing it to make money or something.
Well, let me, while you're teetering on the ledge there.
Yes, here we go. I'm close.
Let me tell you what I just heard about. You know who Chris Hayes is, the guy from MSNBC? He looks like an owl with glasses and all that. He
does look like an owl.
He's now charging that the Trump administration ginned up the death toll, knowing that it was going to be less than that, but setting themselves up to look good when they could say it was less. Why?
So these are the same people that told Trump to shut up and listen to the experts, right? That's what we heard. Listen to the experts, Trump, shut up, because Trump was being too optimistic. Just a couple weeks ago, Trump wanted to open up by Easter, and he was blasted for it. He was not listening to the experts. And now that the models, he's not making the models.
Yeah.
Trump's not making the models. Now when the experts are saying that it's looking a lot better now it's a conspiracy by Trump?
Of course.
What is going on, Tom Benson? My brain can't.
You know what I'm getting
closer to the ledge.
You know what I say? Trump could say the sky is blue and he'd get pushback on that.
Yeah. I mentioned it was just a couple of shows ago when I talked about the fact that I don't understand why people are so upset with Trump wanting to at least make this anti-malaria drug hydroxychloroquine available. And I said, how can they say it's a crisis and we have to shut down the economy and shut down your liberties? And then when you want to have a treatment, then you say, oh, well, it's not that big of a crisis. We have to make sure we have to do all these kinds of tests before we put it out there, even though there have been studies that show it's available. I'm called an idiot because I said that.
Heaven forbid, and it's sad enough that anybody ever has a fatal disease. But if you have one, you're more than likely willing to try anything to keep going.
Yeah, and it's not like, well, we'll get into this later in the show, but it's not like this is just, there's no evidence at all that it works. Dr. K has been on Bud's show twice in the past couple of weeks, citing several studies that show that this is effective and could work for lots of people. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffe, the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. We are on till 8 p.m. tonight right here on News Radio WFLA Orlando. We're also on Facebook Live as well. You can like the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page. Follow me on Twitter at Michael Yaffe. And we have a lot to get to, a lot of Beyond Reason things to discuss. Tom Benson is here as well. How are you, Tom?
I'm fine. I just ordered a pizza, so that should get you in off the ledge.
Ooh, yummy. What kind of pizza?
Pepperoni, extra cheese.
Ooh, my man.
All right. So coming off the ledge, we'll talk.
That's much better than saying don't look just look down. You'll be better. Oh, geez. So one thing that put me in a bad mood is Trump has been discussing starting a second task force to help the economy once we start to get through this crisis. Now, that makes sense, does it not? If Trump didn't do that, wouldn't he be blasted for saying he didn't do anything?
They were unprepared.
Yeah, exactly. So Trump, to me, is doing a smart thing, creating a task force to maybe help the economy get through this, because there is a second crisis going on right now. The first crisis is the virus, but the second crisis is the economic crisis. We have destroyed 10% of American jobs in less than 3 weeks. And the people that don't seem to really understand or care about the implications of that are the people that still have work.
That's right.
So I found this today. MSNBC contributor Stephanie Rule, she was on MSNBC earlier, and she was asked about this economic task force that Trump is proposing. And of course she does. She just hates it. She just thinks it's so stupid. Listen to her Beyond Reason response here.
It's nearly impossible to do quickly, and simply saying, I'm going to put together a task force and we're going to be open for business. Let's make something clear. Open for business is a sentiment. It's a sign. It's not real life. This isn't a snow day. We're not going to decide a week from now or 3 weeks from now, all right, everybody trot back to work. Look at Singapore. Singapore opened back up, and then they saw the largest daily jump to date. And who was it? It was blue-collar workers. We're not going to go back to work until public health experts weigh in here, until you have departments of health say, where are we organizing the infrastructure to have wide-scale case testing, where every person who's showing symptoms has someone from the health department go to their house, record their case, figure out who they spoke to, who they visited. That's how you address this. You have to do it in a public health policy way, or we are going to be in worse shape than ever. And business leaders aren't going to do what the president tells them what to do. You brought it up first. It was Adam Silver from the NBA who said, we're canceling the rest of the season. That was the first moment we had this great aha shift. And it's those frontline workers, not necessarily people who are sitting in a C-suite, who are putting themselves at risk every day. So when you look at the unemployment number, it's upsetting and it's jarring. But it also means that Americans are going home, which is what we need them to do. And what the government needs to do is figure out, how are we going to get, whether it's PPP loans or unemployment benefits, how are we going to get them to the American people faster? Because I promise you, as you just said, people aren't getting the money that they need, at least not yet.
How does she know that the task force is not going to do everything she just talked about?
That's probably why they want to put forward a task force.
Exactly.
So they can do some of those things. What else are we supposed to do?
Oh, man.
I mean, talk about nitpicking the president to death. Did he say by putting forward this task force, we're just all going to go back to work in a week? No one is saying that. But there needs to be a plan in place to slowly get the economy going again, because this is affecting people's lives.
A journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step forward. Where have I heard that before?
I just can't. It's like they are reaching to try to criticize Trump here.
Absolutely.
He's doing something that is totally reasonable, and he's still being blasted for it. And these people are saying people need to stay home, and the government's just going to write them checks, and that's going to solve the problem as we're shut down for 6 months or something. What is your plan then? If you don't like what Trump is doing, what is your plan? Oh, well, we're going to need tracking and all of that stuff. You're going to have the health department track every single person who gets coronavirus? How? How are you going to do that? And what are people who are out of work going to do to feed their families while you still get to work from home? How? I don't hear any answers. All I hear is nitpicking of the president, who's concerned about the economy because it does affect people's lives. I can't understand why they can't connect that dot, that the economy is about lives as well.
Wait until there's some layoffs at MSNBC because advertising is down. Then she'll go, oh, aha.
I know. And then all of a sudden it'll be a big deal. Why do I have a feeling?
Why wasn't Trump thinking about this back in April?
Why do I have a feeling that they're going to complain about opening up the economy until the beginning of November? Why do I have a feeling that's what this is really all about? That all of a sudden, if Joe Biden wins, then all of a sudden we'll hear them change their mind and say, we need to start thinking about opening up the economy.
Christmas is coming. We got to do something.
Exactly. Now, listen. So anchor on MSNBC, Brian Williams, then asks Stephanie Ruhle a question. Go ahead and play this one.
Because I promise you, people aren't getting them.
No back to work federal signal. Steph, you're so
fault.
right that there is no back to work federal signal in this country. And when the president talks about vast stretches of the country, entire regions that he could put back in the economy earlier than others, is that a signal to like ag and oil that he's looking out for their industries?
Oh, come on.
Sure, maybe he's winking at them, but the president's showmanship, or, whether we're seeing the numbers overstated or understated, aren't going to play this time, because we're talking about life and death. People are dying. Grocery store employees are dying. And think about it. If he's mentioning this to people in the ag community, if you run a farm, you cannot run the risk that people you have out there working have the virus. They're spreading it to someone else. This is very serious business. So yes, the president is getting out there, talking up a big game, and it makes the market go up and it makes the market go down. But this is a perfect example of where the stock market and real life and the real economy are two very different things.
I can't take it, Tom Benson. I can't take it, because she says grocery store employees are dying. You know what we should do then, Tom Benson?
Close the grocery stores.
We might as well close the grocery
That's
stores.
right.
Is that what she's saying?
Yes.
Oh, well, the agriculture, he's winking at the agriculture industry and the oil. He's winking at them for just political reasons. He just cares about the stock market. No, he cares about the industry because that's how we eat. That's where we get our food. I don't get what they're talking about. And then she says, well, they can't run the risk of their farmers catching the disease. So should we shut down the farms?
Yes.
What are you saying? That's how we get our food. Congressman Thomas Massey was on Glenn Beck's show this morning. I don't have audio.
Okay.
But he said he's very worried about food shortages now.
Sure.
Because not only have we made the supply line so screwed up,
some meat companies are shutting down because their workers are getting sick. The pork industry was mentioned today in the news.
Yes, across the country, this according to CBS, the local CBS affiliate in Philadelphia. Across the country, major meat processors are starting to shut down plants as employees are getting infected by coronavirus. Tyson, one of the world's largest meat processors, suspended operations at its Columbus Junction, Iowa pork plant this week after more than 24 workers contracted COVID-19 there. Now, Tyson said they're going to divert livestock that was headed to Columbus Junction to other pork plants. So there's a task force that wants to look into this, and Stephanie Ruhle criticizes them and says, no, stay in your homes. I guess we're just not going to eat then? Coming up in the next segment, I'm going to play I'm sorry I'm yelling so much, but I'm very frustrated at this thinking. I don't understand it. Coming up in the next segment, I'll play a voice of reason and more. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffe. We'll be right back.
If you miss any of the show, you can download the Beyond Reason podcast on iTunes.
Okay, you know how it feels when you've saved enough for that long-awaited home edition? Now imagine an addition on that addition. Whoa. That's the feeling with Capital One, where a new savings account earns an interest rate 5 times the national average. That's right, 5 times, as represented by 5 times more singers. This is banking reimagined. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Rate comparison based on FDIC national rate. Capital One NA, member FDIC.
If you're injured, you need to hear this message. All law firms are not the same, and the law firm you choose can make a huge difference. So how do you choose which firm to represent you? I'm Mike Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. Here's my advice. Do your research. Find the firm with the most experience, the best results, with the resources and track record of delivering exceptional service. As America's largest injury law firm, we have thousands of employees, unrivaled technology, investigators, experts, and an army of over 500 lawyers across the country. We are everywhere for everyone. We have the resources to take on the biggest fights and the biggest bullies. Last year alone, over 2 million people like you called Morgan & Morgan in their time of need. And our firm recovered over $7 billion for our clients. So after an injury, who would you choose? Results matter. Reputation matters. Choices matter. There's only one Morgan & Morgan for the people.com.
Dial pound law on your cell. Pound law, that's all. Offices, Orlando.
While you can't believe everything on social media these days, you can believe it's possible to start a new life as an IT pro in as little as 4 months from the comfort of your own home, even if you have zero computer experience. Instead of waiting to see what happens when life gets back to normal, take control of your future now. Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation today. Live online classes meet just twice a week. It's not rocket science. It's mycomputercareer.edu.
Broadcasting from the Mills Air Studios. For all your AC needs, go to millsair.com to schedule an appointment. The voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason is back now.
I got to take a deep breath here, Tom Benson. My blood pressure is a little high.
Get off the ledge. The pizza will be here in 15 minutes. All right.
I'm sorry. I'm just very frustrated. I know I'm not the only one. I know there's a lot of people out there that are frustrated. I see it on my social media. A lot of them are conservatives, though, and a lot of them still have work. So we haven't hit the point yet where a lot of these people that are being laid off and furloughed are getting desperate. But we're going to hit that point. And when we hit that point, what happens next? Does anyone have an answer for that? Is that answer any good? I'm very worried what happens when people who are laid off and furloughed start getting extremely desperate. Not only that, but when we start having food shortages at the grocery store, what happens next? And I hear people like Stephanie Ruhle and MSNBC criticize Trump for wanting to start an economic task force. He's at least trying to address the other crisis, and he's being blasted for it. He's not giving any real solutions, saying everyone should stay in their home, and the solution is the government will take care of you. And then she even admits that the government has been screwing that up. And then, so I need a voice of reason here. I'm going to play a voice of reason here real quick. And believe it or not, the voice of reason is a former New York Times reporter. And
He's one of the good ones. He left.
Yeah, I actually it's an and hold on, I had his name and then I lost it here. It's man, what did I do with it, Tom Benson? I'm sorry. I think
Isn't technology wonderful when it works?
I know. Former New York Times reporter sounds alarm over flawed coronavirus models. His name is Alex Berenson. He was on Fox News, Tucker Carlson, earlier this week, and he was talking about the fact that, well, here's a quote from him, and then you'll hear the audio. The people on the left hold themselves out as being science-driven. They think they're smarter, but they won't look at facts that won't meet their narratives.
Amen.
Here's what he said.
I think I'm pretty good at is seeing whether what people say lines up with what's really happening. And unfortunately, what we are seeing and what we have seen for the last couple of weeks is that the models that have predicted really apocalyptic things in places like New York City and nationally and in the UK don't seem to be matching what's going on in reality. And in some cases, these epidemiologic models are extremely new. They've gone extremely south in a matter of days. And so I think we really have to ask what's going on here and whether or not there are strategies that might be less damaging to the economy that would do just as well, because we've taken huge steps. We've put 10 million people out of work, more actually, because that's the official numbers. In just a couple of weeks, we've caused real societal harm and disruption, and we've done it on the basis of models that don't seem to line up with reality in real time. And economic harm is real harm. So to me, the question is not, should we do something about this? Of course we need to do something about this. The question is, do these massive lockdowns make sense when we can't even necessarily figure out how they're working?
Economic harm is real harm. Now, what he's saying there is not that we should open everything up today. He's not saying, nobody is saying that we shouldn't have done anything. No one is saying we should just open up everything. No one is saying that we were totally prepared for this and we shouldn't have testing and all of this stuff. But we have to look at the economic harm, because economic harm is real harm. There has to be a balance here, or this country is in real trouble. And it's something that's going to be very, very difficult to get out of. I still don't know what it's so hard to understand. So the other thing, I made the mistake of looking at leftist media today on Twitter and listening to some.
No wonder you're on the ledge.
I know. Jeez Louise. Notice that the big complaints that those on the left really have today about all of this are, one, they're totally mad at Trump's task force briefings every day, which, whatever. I mean, I understand some of the criticism. I'm going to get into that later, but holy cow. But they're furious about this hydroxychloroquine debate.
Absolutely.
They're absolutely apoplectic about the fact that President Trump has pushed this, even though there is evidence that it works, and they're ignoring the evidence that it works, telling everyone else to basically ignore it. One person who did that was Washington Post associate editor Eugene Robinson. He talked on MSNBC Morning Joe about this. He had a hit piece against Trump in the Washington Post about this. Do I have the audio?
We do.
Up there. Let's listen to what he said about Trump pushing this.
All right, Gene Robinson, you write in the Washington Post, the one word that proves why President Trump should not be president. What is it?
Hydroxychloroquine, the anti-malaria drug also used for autoimmune conditions that President Trump is touting as the magic bullet against COVID-19, as one of the greatest game changers in the history of medicine, when his medical and science advisors tell him it's definitely not that there is no evidence that it is. But that word, I said that encompasses the reasons why Donald Trump should never be president, because it shows so much about the way he makes decisions. He's not listening to Tony Fauci, one of the world's greatest experts in infectious disease. He's listening to Rudy Giuliani and Peter Navarro and other cronies of his who are telling him about this drug. And they're doing it based on anecdote. Some doctor friend of theirs said, boy, this is really effective. It really works. You should get behind that. Trump has made up his mind that this is the solution to COVID-19, despite evidence to the contrary. This is the way he operates. This is Donald Trump in action.
So now he's making the case that Trump doesn't listen to his medical experts. I've literally seen Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx talk in front of these task force briefings every single day. I've heard other medical experts bring up that this medicine works. But see, if you go against that, if you talk to other people who are not medical experts, they're just stupid. You're just stupid. You just don't understand. And Trump's just stupid. And he just doesn't understand. Wait until I give you evidence on why this does work. And I also debunk this whole theory, conspiracy theory, that the only reason Trump cares about this is because he has a financial stake in the company that makes it, which is Beyond Reason. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffe. We'll be right back.
If you heart Beyond Reason Radio, listen to the Beyond Reason Radio podcast on iHeartRadio. Just download the iHeartRadio app and search Beyond Reason Radio.
Universal Roofing Contracting is open and here to help you. Worried about your roof? We are now offering virtual consultations to serve your roofing needs. When it comes to replacing or repairing your roof, you want quality workmanship and the nation's best warranty. To find out more, call 1-855-ROOF-HELP or online, universalroof.com. License number CCC 1330747, CBC 1258484.
I'm attorney Matt Morgan with an important message. If you wait too long after your injury to call us, you may have no case, and that's money gone forever. Our team is fully enabled with video conferencing and a digital sign-up process to represent you from the comfort of your home, wherever you are, whenever you need. During these difficult times, we are working overtime to make sure that we're there for you. There's only one Morgan & Morgan, for the people.
Injured? Dial pound law on your cell. Pound law, that's all. Offices, Orlando.
Why do so many jewelry buyers choose International Diamond Center?
The transparency is there, the trust is there, and of course the quality.
That's Ross Sanchez, who's been an IDC customer for over a decade, always coming back when there's a special occasion in his life.
Obviously the selection is best in class. The value is fantastic. The ownership is dedicated to earn your business as well as keep your business for future years.
For Ross and so many others, it's not just about the amazing prices. It's about the experience. With no pressure, no games, no commission salespeople.
That's why I bring my friends, colleagues, and business professionals into International Diamond Center.
And it's about a company that cares as much about the community as it does the bottom line.
They just continue to prove their excellence by giving back to the community, whether it's an academy, a dream fund, hospital organization. International Diamond Center has a big heart.
International Diamond Center, proud to be a part of this community and honored to be your jeweler. Get store hours, directions, and more at shopidc.com.
iHeartRadio is the easy-to-use app for music and radio. Download the free iHeartRadio app today.
Your safe space for conservative thought, not for political correctness. Yaffe is back right now.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is another edition of Beyond Reason Radio, Orlando's smart talk radio. We're on until 8 p.m. tonight, right here on News Radio WFLA Orlando. Don't forget, if you've missed any of the shows, not just this show, but any of the shows that I do, you can catch the podcast on the iHeartRadio app. Just search Beyond Reason Radio. Tom Benson's trying to talk me off the ledge because I'm really worried about this country right now, although I think part of me thinks you're about to join me out here on the ledge because, I mean, the one main reason I'm worried is because there's real damage that could come from what we're doing. And I feel like there are people on the other side that are going to continue to fearmonger about all of this for months without realizing the damage not only they're doing to our civil liberties, but to our economy and people's lives. And I think a lot of it is frankly just a political agenda. And that scares me because they are not affected by this as much as some of the other people that are going to be very desperate very soon. But Trump's got a lot of criticism now from the left because he's been pushing this hydroxychloroquine, this anti-malaria drug, which studies have shown that if you take with a Z-Pack, it could help against COVID-19. And they say, no, Trump only does this because he has a personal stake in the malaria drug maker. Well, check out this headline, Tom Benson, from MarketWatch.com. Trump's personal stake in the malaria drug maker Sanofi could be as small as $99.
Well,
$99.
But he wants to make that $99 million.
Mm-hmm. The New York Times says Trump has a small personal stake in Sanofi, the French drug manufacturer that produces the drug. The report doesn't say how small, but it notes that his family trusts have investments in a Dodge and Cox mutual fund, whose largest holding is Sanofi. A fund that matches the description is the Dodge and Cox International Stock Fund, which at last check was 3.3% invested in Sanofi. Now, this kind of stuff happens in mutual funds all the time. When you have as much money as Trump does and you have it dispersed in different funds, you're always going to find connections like this. No matter the issue. It doesn't matter the issue. Yeah. You're going to find connections like this. Mm-hmm. I think this is another Russiagate impeachment conspiracy thing that the left just feels like they're going to push because they just automatically believe the worst in Trump. Maybe he just wanted to save lives. No, that can't be. He doesn't care about lives.
He cares about his wallet.
Yeah. But I mean, this Trump's 2019 financial disclosure form lists stakes in Family Trust 1, 2, and 3 valued at between $1,001 and $15,000. So if Trump has the maximum $15,000 in each of the trusts, he holds a stake in Sanofi that's worth $1,485 and at the minimum just $99. It turns out he does look to have more than the modest sum invested in Sanofi because, unmentioned in the Time reports, his trusts also hold broader European stock market fund index. In each of the trusts, the biggest fund holding is just broader. A lot of this is just economic stuff. I don't want to get too much in the weeds here. It says another point worth making is how little the malaria drug means to Sanofi's bottom line. 2019, what the company calls Plaquenil wasn't even broken out by name in the company's financial accounts, while 33 other medications were. So they made such a big deal about this, and it turns out it's probably nothing, of course. But I did want to give you some evidence from some people out there that shows this thing actually works, including Dr. Mark Siegel, who was on Fox News. He's a Fox News contributor. He talked about why I guess we can't listen, even though he's a doctor. He was on Fox News. I mean, he's lying.
Oh, those are the boogeymen over there.
But I liked this cut because he lays out the evidence. And he talks about how it helped in his personal life as well. Here it is.
We're in a situation where we have a virus that's spreading and killing people and making people sick, and we need to figure out whether there's something that makes sense. And this particular drug, hydroxychloroquine, has been used a lot. Now, what does it do? Here are some effects that are interesting. There's a study out of France right now, small, that shows it in combination with that antibiotic that was mentioned, it decreases the amount of circulating virus, this virus, COVID-19. Also, it's been shown to decrease uptake into the cell. Also, it's been shown to decrease the kind of inflammation that leads to the kind of inflammatory pneumonias that we're actually seeing with COVID-19. That's all in the background of this. Now, there's clinical trials emerging in Rutgers, at NYU, at Penn. There's one coming out in China right now, preliminary in 62 patients, that appears to show that it decreases severity early in the game, before you end up hospitalized, before you end up on a ventilator. So if you're a doctor and you take into account the side effects here, and there are some, you may decide that it's well worth it for particular patients. Tucker, I want to tell you about a 96-year-old man in Florida who said one night, I don't think I'm going to make it. I feel very weak. The end is coming. I'm coughing. I'm short of breath. I can't get up from the couch. The next day, he was on hydroxychloroquine and antibiotics per his cardiologist. He got up the next day. He was fine. This man is my father.
Wow.
Yeah, that last part's amazing, right? 96-year-old, his father, takes the medicine. But even before, that was the last thing he mentions there. Even before that, though, he gives the evidence. This study shows this. This study shows that. So it's not like Trump is just making this up out of thin air or something. There is evidence out there that suggests that this could work. And Trump made the point that what do we have to lose?
Absolutely.
There are some side effects, but the side effects are nowhere near as bad as these people dying from the virus.
Look at the side effects that you see in all the TV commercials for drugs.
Yeah, I know every drug has.
I mean, holy cow.
Yeah, every drug has side effects. But I mean, they act like he's just making this up, and he's saying, look, we don't have time to do all the tests right now. There's evidence that this works. Let's at least make it available to doctors who want to make the decision to use it if they can.
Sure.
What is wrong with that? Via prescription, but they just can't go along with it. Now, more evidence that this stuff actually works. Michigan Democratic State Representative Karen Whitsett, she also went on Fox News. She was a Trump hater, not a fan of Trump at all. But she went on Fox News and talked about how this drug possibly saved her life. And then she thanks Trump for highlighting it in the press briefings. Here's what she said.
It went from the headaches to being extremely severe to fluid building up in my lungs to sweats breaking out, the cough, my breathing being labored. It all happened in a matter of hours. If President Trump had not talked about this, it would not be something that's accessible for anyone to be able to get that right now. It would not even be possible. And I mean that honestly, because I did have a difficult time even that day obtaining the medication because of an order that was put down in my state. I had to really beg and plead and go through a whole lot to try to get the medication. And my husband was able to pick that prescription up that night, and I was better within a couple of hours.
That's amazing. Better within a couple of hours. She wouldn't have even known that the medicine was available if it were not for Trump. She hates Trump. She uses it. She gets better. She thanks Trump. And it was still difficult for her to get. And she still had to get it through a prescription through a doctor. So when the left is just totally bashing Trump for mentioning this and pushing this, and then they come up with some crazy theory that it's all just about a financial stake, tell that to that person we just listened to. Tell that to Dr. Mark Siegel, whose father's life was saved by this. And there's other stories like that out there. Trump didn't just make it up. So I want to move on to an interview that the Attorney General Bill Barr did. And this kind of gives me hope as well. He did this earlier this week. And the reason why I want to play this is because what we're seeing right now with this pandemic, we're seeing an infringement on our civil liberties, on our civil rights, on our liberty. We're also seeing the infringement on the economy. And I've said afterward, when this is over, we have to look back and find out what we did right and what we did wrong.
Another task force, Yaffe. I'll tell you.
Yeah, what am I thinking? Stephanie Rule will just totally bash me. But we do. We have to look at this because the government has taken unprecedented action here that affects the individual maybe more than at any other time in American history outside of slavery, of course. And I was encouraged to listen to this interview by Bill Barr because he mentions this and he wants to look into this. And this shows that at least the top law enforcement agency, the Department of Justice, is realizing that even in the world of coronavirus, we still need to protect civil liberties. We still need to protect individual rights. And they are going to look into it, that they're not taking the opposite approach, that we're just going to set the precedent that this is what government should do all the time. Bill Barr was asked about this. Here's what he said.
Generally speaking, there are occasions where liberties have to be restricted during certain emergency such as war, or in this case, a potentially devastating pandemic. But they have to be balanced. Whatever steps you take have to be balanced against the civil liberties of the American people, and it cannot be used as an excuse for broad deprivations of liberty. So as things proceed, we're going to be interested in both what the federal government is imposing and also making sure that that's justified, but also what the states do. The states have very broad, as you know, what we call police powers. They have very broad powers that the federal government doesn't have to regulate the lives of their citizens, as long as they don't violate the Constitution. So we'll be keeping a careful eye on that.
I think that's good. I think that's encouraging. The fact that the Attorney General of the United States is saying, look, we have to keep an eye on this. We have to make sure that we're not infringing too much on the individual's civil liberties, that we're not infringing on people's rights, that even after this is going on, that we're going to pay attention to this. I'm glad. Are you cynical? You don't believe him, Tom? You're giving me a look in there.
Yaffy. He's just another Trump stooge.
Yeah, that's what they're going to say next.
Exactly.
Oh, jeez. Okay, so, and then this next cut here I thought was really interesting. He talked about, once again, balancing responding to this virus with the economic impact. Here's what he said.
Yeah, I think they have been patient, and I think we have to be very careful to make sure this is, that the draconian measures that are being adopted are fully justified, and they're not alternative ways of protecting people. And I think, when this period of time, at the end of April, expires, I think we have to allow people to adapt more than we have, and not just tell people to go home and hide under the bed, but allow them to use other ways, social distancing and other means, to protect themselves.
He was blasted for that, even though it's a perfectly reasonable response, because apparently the left just wants us to go hide under our beds until we get a vaccine. I guess that's the solution.
They want bedlam. They want anarchy. They want the power.
Well, they might get the first two if this keeps up. Speaking of that, in the next segment, I do want to, there is one thing that President Trump did today that I have to criticize him for. It just annoys me, and we'll get into that next. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffe. We'll be right back.
Download the iHeartRadio app and catch the Beyond Reason Radio podcast.
Jesus, a name that is uniquely above every name. Scripture teaches that one day the whole world will bow down and worship him. Yet the name of Jesus is more and more forbidden in the public square. One may use God or higher power, but the name of Jesus, whoa, don't you push your religion on me. Mention the name of Jesus at the office or in a public school, and often authorities will try to shut you down. Think about what that says. No name in all the world creates a more powerful positive or negative response than Jesus. He came to save us from sin, death, and hell, and to give us eternal life. But to admit we need a Savior is to admit we are sinners. And that is very offensive to those who don't understand who Jesus really is. Yes, there is something about that name. No name is more powerful, loving, or more offensive than Jesus. This is Bryant Wright, speaking right from my heart.
As we work to get through these times together, you may not be thinking about blood donation, but blood is needed every day to help save the lives of cancer patients, accident victims, and so many others who depend on life-saving transfusions. It's easy and safe to give blood. If you are in good health, please make an appointment to donate blood or platelets in the weeks ahead by visiting redcrossblood.org or calling 1-800-RED-CROSS. You can make a difference.
Okay, you know how it feels when you've saved enough for that long-awaited home edition? Now imagine an addition on that addition. Whoa. That's the feeling with Capital One, where a new savings account earns an interest rate 5 times the national average. That's right, 5 times, as represented by 5 times more singers. This is banking reimagined. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Rate comparison based on FDIC national rate. Capital One NA member FDIC.
Coronavirus updates multiple times an hour, every hour. News Radio WFLA Orlando. your voice of truth in a world of fake news. Beyond Reason Radio continues right now.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I do have one criticism of Trump today, because the Wall Street Journal came out with a editorial. Their editorial board came out with their opinion piece, and they criticized Trump for these daily White House press briefings, complaining that the news outlet failed. Well, basically, they were complaining that Trump is now kind of using these for his own personal benefit, that it started out as a good thing, but it's turned into something else. In the opinion piece published Wednesday was titled Trump's Wasted Briefings. The Journal's editorial board bemoaned that the daily press conferences intended to focus on the latest news surrounding the coronavirus had become more about the many feuds of Donald Trump. The editorial board wrote that Trump's frequent attacks on the press, governors, and his critics during the briefing were off-key given the severity of the pandemic that has killed thousands of people in the U.S. The board urged Trump to cede center stage at the briefings to Vice President Pence and top officials who have regularly appeared at the briefings but have primarily waited to provide updates until the president delivers his own remarks. I mean, you can disagree with that, but it seems like a reasonable criticism. So Trump responds to this on Twitter, of course. And he says, the Wall Street Journal always forgets to mention that the ratings for the White House press briefings are through the roof. Which is true, I guess.
Yeah, but every
news channel's
covering it.
Yeah,
there's nothing else to watch.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then he referenced a New York Times piece that recently compared the numbers of viewers to Monday Night Football or The Bachelor. Then he said, only way for me to escape the fake news and get my views across. Then he says, the Wall Street Journal is fake news. Now, for one, this is an opinion piece from the editorial board, okay? So it's an opinion. It's not a news story. It's an opinion. So you can't just say, oh, it's fake news. But what bothers me is instead of just disagreeing with the criticism, he has to immediately, oh, you're just fake news.
Yeah.
And the reason why that bothers me here is the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal defends Trump all the time.
They're generally supporting, sure.
Yeah, I mean, not always. I like them. I don't always agree with them, but they defend Trump too. In fact, one person on the board is Kim Strassel, who wrote a book defending Trump against impeachment and calling out the left on that whole issue, to the point where Donald Trump himself retweeted Kim Strassel several times and promoted her book. So are you saying that she is part of fake news now? Because she's a part of the Wall Street Journal editorial board? This stuff, it just annoys me. You can disagree with the criticism. That's fine. That's America. But to say because they have a different opinion than that you like, to just straight up call them fake news, it just annoys me.
Sure.
Because now you're throwing someone who is an ardent defender of yours under the bus for one piece that makes a decent point. So, like I said, that did bother me from Trump today, because he goes after the people that were on his side. This doesn't make sense. So, another thing I wanted to get into really quick, California has had an interesting response to coronavirus. So they've noticed, well, there's been a lot of people wondering why California doesn't seem to have as many cases as New York. There might be an answer for that. And they did a report on it on Monterey Bay, California, local TV news affiliate Channel 8 did a report. They think it might be herd immunity. And then they also talked to Victor Davis Hanson on this. Here's a report. It's very interesting.
California is seeing some early success in flattening the curve. As of Tuesday, there were 374 reported fatalities in a state of 40 million people, compared to New York, which has seen 14 times as many deaths and has a population half our size.
Something is going on that we haven't quite found out yet.
That's the voice of Victor David Hanson, a senior fellow at Stanford's Hoover Institute. He says social distancing is playing a role, but it's not the only explanation for California's lower than expected numbers. He thinks it's possible COVID-19 arrived undetected in California as early as the fall, when doctors reported an early and vicious flu season. And during that same time, the state was welcoming as many as 8,000 Chinese visitors daily at our airports.
When you calculate as well that there were people on direct flights to San Francisco and LAX from Wuhan, ground zero of the outbreak, it would be naive not to think that the California population wasn't exposed.
If that is the case, a portion of our population may have already had COVID-19, and those folks could have helped us build up some herd immunity. But we won't know the proportion until results from a new Stanford study come back in a few weeks. On Friday and Saturday, teams were deployed to 3 Bay Area test sites where 3,200 people volunteered to take antibody tests for COVID-19.
Knowing the levels to which that happened would be great. And one of the tools you can use is this test, which can tell, have you been exposed in the past, as opposed to some of the tests that we were doing originally, which were really focused on, do you have it right now?
Lab technicians use a finger prick for the antibody test, and it can tell within minutes if a person has developed antibodies to COVID-19. Unlike the swabs, which only detect the virus if the person is currently infected. Hansen suspects more people than we think have developed antibodies. As a frontline state with a large homeless population and an even greater number of people living below the poverty line, California should be doing much worse. And social distancing may not be the only thing keeping our COVID numbers low.
When you look at other states, it doesn't quite explain completely why California has been more fortunate, especially more fortunate when it should be the least fortunate.
So I thought that was really interesting. They were talking with Victor Davis Hanson, and they were looking at the fact that California doesn't seem to be doing nearly as bad as New York, and it doesn't make sense because they only shut down things a couple days earlier. And people were saying, well, they did things earlier, that's why, but doesn't seem to be a whole lot of proof for that. So they're wondering, what is the difference? Now, some have said it's because they're more spread out, but they make the point that maybe it was there a lot sooner, and there's been some herd immunity that has spread, which means that less people are not going to get it because there's that immunity there. I wonder if that's true in the state of Florida as well. I guess we'll find out when we do the antibody testing, but very interesting. I just want to close with a note here. For one, happy Passover. Passover, not only a holiday for our Jewish listeners, but also Christians celebrate Passover as well. One thing I do want to point out is the good thing that has come out of this is maybe people will realize how blessed they were in this country before all of this. Maybe we'll realize how much we took for granted every single day in this country. That it's not all guaranteed, but it takes work, and it shows how blessed we are to live in this greatest country on the planet. And maybe now we'll realize all the progress this country has made and not bash it all the time. And thank God for what you had, and when we get it back, thank God again for what you have. Appreciate you listening to the show. I will be back next week. I hope you all have a good week and catch the podcast, and see you guys next time.
And he's off the ledge.
While you can't believe everything on social media these days, you can believe